Yeah, Jordan Selleck, you're back, man. You're back. You survived.
Back alive. I didn't drown. Uh, after this race, I did learn that it was apparently the toughest Ironman Florida in like literally over 15 years. Pro triathlete Lionel Sanders wrote an Instagram post. He said this is the toughest swim of his career. I didn't know. I thought doggy paddling in circles and drinking salt for 2 hours was normal.
Dude, okay, so let me just read some. Let me read from the wealth of knowledge that is the repository of all things smart and wise from the interwebs, Wikipedia, which says an Ironman triathlon is one of a series of long distance triathlon races organized by the World Triathlon Corporation, consisting of 2.4 mile swim, a 112-mile bicycle ride, and a marathon, which is 26.22 miles. Raced in that order, and it is widely considered one of the most difficult one-day sporting events in the world. And my friend, you survived it, dude.
I can attest to that. Those facts and figures are correct. And some, because one of the buoys on the swim got loose. So people were swimming like literally an extra half mile or a mile. But maybe if it's helpful for the audience, I'll back up a little bit and kind of provide some of the context.
Yeah.
So my family and we live in just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. My background, I did 6 years of investment banking, and now we've had a marketing business for the past 3 years. I've been doing entrepreneurship for 5 years. I don't know if you can see this little number 5 balloon above me, which is for our 5-year-old. We have a 2-year-old as well, but I realize we have also made it 5 years in entrepreneurship. So the context here is that my wife and I run a business. We have 2 kids that are 2 and 5 years old. We have a nonprofit that helps transitioning veterans. And then triathlon is a really big part of become a big part of our lives. And, my journey in triathlon really started, I think it was November, December of 2020, when I saw Chris Nikic become the first person with Down syndrome to do an Ironman. And seeing him cross the finish line at Ironman Florida a year ago just started making me tear up, and I had to talk to this person. So we did a interview, and his interview inspired me to sign up. So a little bit more context is needed because this was literally our first triathlon. I didn't own a bike until 2 months before the race. I didn't own a wetsuit until a week before the race. Now, I am not advocating that this is the way to go. And my family and friends would also say that was probably less than ideal. I didn't know how to change a flat tire till like literally 24 hours before. And so, we went on a 1-year journey, and, I truly did not know what an Ironman was. Even when Chris was telling me about the race, when you say 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, 26.2 mile run, it didn't compute what that actually meant until 6 months into the training, when you get the volume for each of the disciplines up and you have to start integrating the disciplines.
Yeah.
When I started to finally realize, holy crap, like what did I get myself into here? What did we as a family get ourselves into? But I mean, there's so many things to really uncover from this whole experience, but I thought it hopefully would be helpful to kind of provide that context that we signed up, not knowing what we're getting into. My wife and I are running a 6-person digital marketing business, and we have a nonprofit that, we care deeply about with veterans, and then 2 young kids, and we had to figure out how the heck do we do this?
So you kind of blow that whole excuse out of the water that a lot of people have of, I just don't have time, I'm too busy. I mean, for crying out loud, Jordan, there's so many people that you run into, and I know you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth, and just, the type A personality. when we hear that, we're like, really? When people just say, I don't have time to exercise or whatever, and then you take it to this uber level. Now, how long ago was this whole process? When was it that you first decided? About a year or?
Yeah. So I think I signed up December 2020,
Okay.
and the race was November 6th, 2021.
Okay.
So, we really had, call it, a good 11 months to figure it out.
Right.
And I guess kind of diving into that thing you're bringing up there in terms of excuses. I found that really, you can look at, we can literally just go through a long list of excuses, right?
Yeah.
I have one leg. Okay, well, let me show you 100 plus triathletes who have done it with one leg. I don't have any legs. Well, let me show you plenty of people who don't have legs who have done it. I am disabled in some other way. Okay, here's the first person with Down syndrome who did it. I run a business. I don't have time for it. Well, we have 2 kids, a business and a nonprofit, and we figured it out. Yeah. I don't know what to do. I didn't own a bike. I didn't own a wetsuit. I didn't own a tri-suit. I didn't even know what I was signing up for. And then we as a family decided, like, we want to sign up for the most difficult type of race that there is. And we're going to figure it out. I don't have enough money. BS. You can find money. You can go on to social media. You can ask your family and friends, hey, I really want to figure this out. Can I get some support? Oh, by the way, I was misdiagnosed with a brain tumor. Oh, Jay Hewitt, he did his first day of Ironman training on his first day of radiation. So I don't want to waste any more time talking about the long list of excuses people can come up with. They just need to find something to sign up for. Yeah. And it could be, and I would really encourage people and invite people to sign up for something that is 10 times more difficult than you think you can do. So if right now, if doing a mile is difficult, then sign up for a 10K. That's 6 months from now. Yeah. Sign up for a 5K. That's 3 months from now. And you don't have to know how you're going to do it. You have to have that time constrained pressure that you have to reverse engineer from. So after this Ironman two weeks ago, since then I've asked a lot of friends, hey, would you sign up for a marathon? Would you sign up for a half? Would you sign up for a full? And to be honest, a lot of people said, how do I do this? Let me think about it. Like, let me think about it is the number one excuse, because what will happen is if they truly need to think about it, you know what's going to happen? Oh, hey, I love our conversation on Tuesday, and it's Saturday. I got to, go out with the kids. Oh, Sunday, I got to go to church and do family stuff. Oh, then the next week happens. Oh, hey, by the way, it's Thanksgiving week and we do stuff. And then they don't do anything. Yeah. So one of the things that really impressed me, or really is a key takeaway from this whole experience, is, less talk and more walk, less talk and more action. There are thinkers and doers. And it was the same thing when I did our first marathon in April 2019. I was with my buddy, and did I already tell you about this?
No.
Okay.
Or if you did,
I'm just rambling and going off this, but my endurance journey really started in 2019 when I was in Boston at my friend's house, who was a former Navy SEAL who was injured when an RPG went off next to him. And so I was at his house in Boston, and he said, hey, let's go for a little run. Last week I went into the Sahara Desert and I ran over 100 miles. So do you want to go a 5-mile run with me? I'm like, okay, thanks for setting it up like that, dude. Right. Yeah, I will. So we get done doing a whole 5-mile run and get back to his house. And he says, you should do a marathon. It's just 5 miles times 5 approximately. And I said, thanks for the math lesson there. So in a moment of stupidity and bravado, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to run a marathon next week. Oh. And so it was like just pure stupidity. And then I had never run more than, I would say, maybe 5 or 10 miles in my life. And so I had 8 days to figure out how to run a marathon. And there was not a race. I just all right, Central Park, New York, 5 loops around Central Park, and our family and our friends are going to come out. We'll get people to run different laps. And I asked people over the next 8 days, like I would literally stop people on the street and say, hey, you have a Brooklyn half marathon shirt on. I'm running a marathon in a couple of days. Like, how do I do this? And people were just like, hey, watch out for this hill, watch out for that hill. Make sure to start off slower. Don't gas yourself out. Here's your nutrition. But I think one of the fascinating things about that first step in our endurance journey is when I asked two groups of people how to do a marathon in 8 days. Group number one were the Navy SEALs, Green Berets, the special ops veterans that I work with through our nonprofit. Group two was like the finance community. I would ask guys like, hey, how do I do this in 8 days? And then the guys say, number one, don't do it. Number two, do a 5K, do a 10K, do a half, then do a full in a year. I was like, I'm doing this in 8 days. I got to figure this out. But the veteran community had a very insightful, simple moment of advice to me. And they said, here's how you finish a marathon in 8 days. Don't quit. It was nothing technical, nutrition wise, nothing technical, pacing wise. It was a simple mentality of when you're setting a goal that is 10 times bigger than you think it is, than you think you can achieve, and you're setting that goal as 10 times bigger than you think you can achieve, you have to have certain ideas. And one of those key ideas is don't quit.
I love
so
that.
That's how the endurance journey really started. And then in 2020, during the pandemic, we started to do our morning routine with the kids. You wake up at 7, you're out by 7:15, you're on the pier by 7:30, and you're doing burpees and other stuff with, the 2-year-old and 5-year-old. And sometimes they join, sometimes they don't. Then we started running more, and we did another marathon, just self-organized with some friends in October. I blew myself out on the first half, and I got 10 minutes slower than the year before when I only had 8 days of training. And so that was another lesson learned in terms of actually having a strategy. So I was like, screw this. This is stupid. So I'm going to run another marathon next month in Central Park. So in November, we did one in Central Park, and there was some more friends and figured it out. But that was, that's hopefully the context of this endurance journey. And then in December 2020 is when I met Chris Nikic, which really started this whole path down the Ironman.
So there's so much there, man, that I want to unpack, because the way I'm looking at this is just kind of like an autopsy, if you will. I mean, you survived, so thank God the cadaver is alive here.
My mom asked me if life insurance.
Yeah. Well, here's my first question.
My friends were asking me, hey, what size is your casket? And I was like, thanks.
Yeah. Real encouraging, huh? So here's the deal. So, I guess it was Nietzsche that famously said, anyone with a big enough why can overcome almost any how. So my first question is, now, and you kind of described it there, the first meeting with, remind me the first Down syndrome.
Chris Nikic,
okay,
Nikic.
Okay.
And here's a fascinating thing. If you Google triathlete, his photo will be one of the top photos that comes up.
That's awesome.
Which is an amazing statement about the state of humanity and sports.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite stories is that Dick Hoyt. Have you ever looked, Dick Hoyt and his son? Oh my gosh, if you can watch the myriad of videos of Dick Hoyt pushing his son through these races and not choke up, and you're dead to the world, I guess. But
that happened with Kyle Peace when I was on the bike and the run. Actually, when I was on the bike, same thing. So I think it's Kyle Peace. I think he has cerebral palsy, and his brother, who I forget his name, I'm actually going to interview him on our podcast. They passed me on the bike. And I was like, wait a second, what's good? Who are they? And they lapped me on the marathon.
That's amazing.
So it was so cool, and just a message of inclusion, and that once again, no excuses.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have a bike that fits somebody with cerebral palsy who can't run and can't bike and can't swim? Well, guess what? Ask, figure it out. You don't have the money for it? Ask, figure it out. Find friends with the support.
Yeah.
Never done one before? Sign up, figure it out.
Well, and so let's bring that to that question. So what was as you got to it, was that meeting with him the initial why, and did that stay the why the whole way? And before you answer, Jordan, I want you to take me through those times where maybe the why changed. And did you ever consider quitting? You know, screw this. Great idea. Pushing myself like I never had before, but I'm out. You know, either during the training or during the race. I mean, I want to get into your head, because there had to have been some of those moments where the self-talk was just, it's probably something you'd never experienced, I would bet. So kind of get in that field, get inside your head in those moments, either training, during the race, or whatever, and kind of describe what it was like and how did that why draw you to not quit?
Yeah, this makes me think of something I've literally wrestled with since 2019. And I can report that in 3 years, I don't have a concrete why. And I listened to James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, who first did, set the record of the most half Ironmans in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did the 50-50-50. And then he just recently completed the 100, no, just 100, 100 Ironman distances in 100 days. And in his interview on Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu, he said he doesn't have one why, he has a bag of whys. And for me, I think it was this, that's a little bit better analogy or metaphor. I don't know what it's called, but a better way to think about that. And some of the things that worked for me, like my whys include, number one, I don't have to do this. I get to do this. My father died of a brain tumor. My brother died of a brain tumor. I'm alive. And the person who told me that was a former Air Force fighter pilot, Joel Neeb, who he was going to go to Thunderbirds, and then he got cancer, a really rare form, and thought he was going to die. And then he didn't. And then he went on to do an Ironman, climb Mount Kilimanjaro, be on American Ninja Warrior. And he told me that he's like, I don't have to work out. I don't have to do this stuff. I get to do that. So that was really one of the biggest whys. And I think some of the other big reasons, which I learned going through the training for a year, is that seeing our family's identity evolve from me doing this individually to now the kids are coming out. And if we do a half marathon and it's a Saturday, and I'm going to, get our 5-year-old and she's going to run a quarter mile every mile. And if she wants ice cream that day, like, you better run a quarter mile.
Right.
And then, or if she wants to do some burpees with us, et cetera, like our family identity really changed. And I'll kind of get to some more recent news when we get to the later parts of this interview on some things that are happening with our family and as a result of this. But really, it was seeing how this was affecting other people's lives. And now, after I have done this, I've seen, like, 2 of my friends in the past week have signed up for marathons. They're not even close to being ready, but they signed up because of this. I had people who would DM me afterwards and say, like, hey, like, seeing your journey really brought me out of a dark place, and I was in a really bad rut, and now I'm signing up for something else. So that's another part of my whys, which I'm just discovering. But I think that, one of the big realizations from this is also how, the discovery of why is not a process with a clear beginning and end. Discovering your why to do a big challenge or your day-to-day existence is an ongoing journey. And discovering your why is something that should never end. It can evolve, and that's okay. I didn't have that one why, such as, if I finish this, then 100 kids in El Salvador get a bed at this orphanage. Now, one of the guys who I ran next to, that was his why. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And it was, and I think now we're gonna kind of get to the dirty secret about my Ironman experience. And I legitimately feel guilty about saying this. I didn't really enter the pain cave.
Really?
Now let me kind of break this down. So the swim, I was in the 1 hour and 10 minute group. I was like, all right, that's my pace. I finished at 2 hours. It was easily one of the most difficult things.
Yeah.
You know, every time you're trying to get up, you're being smacked by the wind and smacked by the water, and you're turning around the red turning buoys. And then it's just a pure mosh pit in that. That was, I just thought it was normal to be beat up in the ocean like that. And I truly did not feel that it was, that was my oh crap moment. Like in my 2 marathons or 3 marathons before that, I had a ton of those moments. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So you get to the bike. I spent 7 hours and 15 minutes on the bike. Like, I was averaging 15 miles an hour. And it was super windy for the first 70 of the 112 miles. Now, when I say, I didn't understand when other triathletes would say, oh, it's a really windy day. And then I was like, holy crap. Like, oh yeah, apparently it does matter when you're on a bike and you're just flapping in the wind. Yeah. But once again, I didn't go into the pain cave. And then on the marathon, we got done with the bike. I'm like, all right, 2 down, only a marathon to go. I didn't hit the wall at all during the marathon. And I got done at hour 15. I think I had 15:10, 15 hours and 10 minute finish. And I crossed, and I legitimately felt guilty, because in my 3 marathons, I had those moments when I'm just lying on the ground, and the euphoric feelings, the endorphins and everything. And then I realized over the next week, and realizing the reason why I didn't feel like crap and go into the pain cave is because I trained for 11 months.
Yeah.
And so my only goal for this first triathlon, first Ironman, was to finish. That was my only goal. And I didn't want to get to hour 3 of 7 hours on a bike and just kill myself on the bike and having nothing left on the run. I only had one goal, which was to finish the most difficult triathlon event that there is. And so, you know, that was an important lesson, in that the effect of the compound effect of small things over time can have a huge result. And I didn't understand that actually until the week after I finished the Ironman, when I realized it's okay that you weren't dead, and you know that you could have pushed yourself harder. Like, you were actually ready. And it's the first time in my life when I did something that had long-term planning, and I felt I was ready.
There's a great message in that, man. There's such a great message in that, because I know that I was talking to one of my daughters here recently about how much better you feel on those. It's a horrible feeling. And, you know, for me, you know, having some politics in my background, like when I ran for city council here, first political race I ever ran, I remember on election day feeling that, well, I should go do this or should go do that. And I go, well, wait a minute. No, I knocked on doors every single night till 7 o'clock. And there's a certain peace about that, of just knowing that you really have done all you could do prior to. And so there's a relaxation. So I think that that's got to be something that you will take with you for the rest of your life. Now, have you read the book Endure by chance? It's Alex
Endurance
Hutchinson. Not Endurance, not the one with, not about
Shackleton's journey.
Not Shackleton, which is amazing. You know, that's one of my favorite books of all time. But Alex Hutchinson, this book right here, no. It was on my 52 books to read this year for the Vitruvian Book Review, and I've got a review of it on YouTube. And I started thumbing through it before this interview, because I wanted to know, like, some of those questions about, as you were going through the training process, and even in the race, like that first mile or two of the run, where the wind or the swim would scare me to death, because I'm just, you know, that would to me be it would all be hell. But the swim for me personally, just the type of athlete I am, that would be my Achilles. Do Is it more mental or physical or both? I mean, kind of are you even able to break that down as to, even whenever you're like, okay, so you're talking about the compounding effect of the training, those mornings, whenever I would see you on Instagram up, well before sunup, about to go crush a 10-mile run or something.
4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
In
Where
the
you're,
pool or in the bike, we're running at 5.
yeah. So that's got to be as much mental, just to get up and get dressed and go out. So would you say the journey is more mental than physical, or is that even possible at this point to really break that down?
Yes. And I would expand this more in terms of, for me, the race was not the accomplishment. When I look back at the journey for 11 months, the actual accomplishment was the family rallying around this one goal and being able to truly develop the muscle of discipline, which was very weak in January 2021 when I didn't have that muscle of discipline. But then you realize that every time you do that 9 p.m. run when you don't want to, and you put your kids to bed and you're horribly tired, or you wake up at 4:30 and you're tired and you're about to fall asleep, like in the pool. I had those moments. I just close my eyes and I just swim, and I hit the sides of the lane. When each one of those instances is a vote for the person that you want to become.
There you go.
And so over 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, eventually you've put in enough votes for the person that you are becoming that on race day, it sounds so weird to say this, but I wasn't nervous at all. Like literally not nervous until the first 5 seconds when it was 47 degrees and windy on the beach. I'm like, holy crap, what am I getting myself into? But in the 11-month journey, I had zero nerves. Yeah. And that's because of the compound effect of small things done over time. Yeah. And, that's one of the big messages to anybody out there who's watching this and listening to this is sign up for that 10X goal, sign up for life, and then have the expectation that you will figure it out with your community, and it's going to have compound effects. And the expectation is to be really clear. It will suck in the beginning. You're not going to know what you need to do. You're not going to know what you need to eat. You're not going to know how hard you need to train, etc. Like, just stop making excuses for it and get after it.
I love that. And whenever you start to speak the language of atomic habits, it's that's always near and dear to me. And the thing that you just said there is something that so many people will read those books. They will hear the messages. They'll watch the Instagram cool quotes, and that's kind of where it sits. But you have actually walked it out and you've seen the results of it. And man, the way you describe the benefit being the journey, one of the things I try to always tell people, there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like for you, the pot of gold was not at the finish line. You pick the pieces of gold up along the way, and either when it's too late to go run the marathon or do another Ironman, just because your body is just to a state where it's like it can't, you get to sit there and you've got those memories and those experiences that were the gold you picked up along the way, or you don't. And woe to those poor souls who lie there when it's too late and look in that pot and there's nothing. And so I think you do. And then now I love this idea, and I think that I see a book in the making with you, Jordan Selleck, on this idea of becoming a family Ironman.
Yeah.
And bringing the really family around. Yeah, that to me is really a cool ancillary benefit that you've seen from this.
That is, I think, the biggest personal and family takeaway is that this journey started off about me and evolved to we. And whenever people see the stories of others on Instagram, the athletes or whoever's doing what on Instagram, what is typically left out of that context is the family or the friends that are supporting that journey. So, what people don't see is when I have to go out at what was supposed to be a 7 a.m. bike for 5 hours, and it turns out to be, oh, you're starting at 10. Well, hey, who's going to take care of the kids? Or, on this journey, especially, doing this together with my wife, who's we're business partners. Well, hey, I have to go off for this run or this ride, and then we got to knock out this particular thing for a client. Right. It's or when you're trying to figure this out with, just expenses and budgeting. And there's so much more that I learned throughout this process. Yes, I am the one in the swim. I'm the one on the bike. That's on the run, but that's what you see. But that's not actually. It's the support team. Yeah. And it was fascinating to see. Going through that experience, maybe get a deeper appreciation for when you see what you perceive to be the solo athletes who are accompanying. That's not it at all. It's the exact opposite. But the other thing that I really realized is, in part of this key theme of from me to we, is over the past year or two, I've kind of felt a little bit more negative than I should be. And to see people on race day to be as incredibly supportive of other people and to be uplifting and supportive really was a chance to kind of look in the mirror and start to assess, like, looking at my own language, and am I being as supportive of others? And so it's really made me think, like, I have to go down this is part of my next journey. And watching tone, specific language, am I given an Ironman effort in being a father, an Ironman effort in being a son, an Ironman effort in being a husband, in being a colleague? And so now that's part of the next chapter, which kind of goes to something which I'm super excited about, and more excited about is that yesterday, my wife registered for her first triathlon and first half Ironman, which will be in Nice, France. And we're going to be doing that race together. And, do we have any idea what we're going to do with the kids between now and then? Nope, we got to figure that out. How are we going to get there and pay for it? She doesn't have a bike yet, doesn't have the wetsuit. And so to be going along this journey now, focusing on her, and she's probably going to sign up for her first another half, like maybe in April or May. We're going to kind of check schedules, but to now play to kind of shift roles on the crew. And instead of being the athlete, now I'm the support team. Now I get to develop a whole different skill set and support in her journey. And so, now we also have to figure out where the kid's going to be in June when we're supposed to be in France at an Ironman.
That's awesome, man. And so backing up to what you said about, what it's done to make you focus on just kind of your worldview, or just how you react to the circumstances of the world around you. That's one of the reasons why I started the Vitruvian Project that then became this show, and the motto, improve always in all ways. And when people ask me, so what does that mean? It's like, well, I am of the belief, and this is what you kind of made me think of and was confirming to me early on in this conversation. If I'm the absolute best version of myself, whatever that looks like, mentally, emotionally, physically, as a husband, as a father, if I'm the absolute best version of myself, I firmly believe that will spill over into benefiting my fellow man. And so what I see in what you've done by having your friends sign up, that's whenever I thought about that. Oh, okay. See, there is something to this. Your friends look at you and they go, well, Jordan's doing this, so I can do this. And it's not about the trophies and the accolades. It's about, you now have experiences, and now what you've got, these stories of bringing your family together, man, that are just invaluable, and they're so rich. And so, man, kudos for getting that. And so it sounds to me like there may be a bag of whys, but you and I share that why. I don't know why, and I don't say it arrogantly or anything like that, but I have taken it upon myself that I want to be the absolute best human being I can to the community around me, whatever that looks like, for the benefit of others, you know. And so therefore, am I placing a burden on myself or a mantle on myself? I don't know. It doesn't feel like a burden because I benefit. I get to stay healthy. I get to eat well. I get to do things I love, like have this podcast and talk to interesting and accomplished people like you. It's that idea that just bleeds and just starts to compound upon and make the world around you a better place. And so I
And
commend
sometimes we
you for
don't
that.
see the effect of, a lot of times it's unknown the effect that we are having in the example we are setting, both positive and negative.
Exactly.
And to see, I in my Evernote journal, every time somebody emails, calls, or texts, and they mention that, I always take note of it, because I literally have a document called oxygen. And that is my oxygen to see that this is having an impact, to see that this is meaningful. And so I use that, and then it's looking back on that document and seeing the effects are worth the sacrifice.
Absolutely.
But you know, I've just now thought about this in terms of, actually, you know, it's this whole process. I've had this kind of, the big question, like, why do we need to do difficult physical challenges? What is so different about a physical challenge as opposed to a mental challenge, that, or any challenge? Like, why do challenging things? Right. And I think I've started to discover that when you are at mile 18 of a marathon, it's your first marathon, or you're doing an Ironman and you're at the, you know, the second half of the marathon, or whatever that physical challenge is, you can't hide behind anything. And you also get to see other people in that same state of being naked and not being able to hide emotions. And I think that's speaks to a deep human desire to know who other people truly are when they don't have the facade, to know more about ourselves when we don't have that facade. And that's one of the things I've discovered about physical challenges, is that that's really the only way that I've been able to experience to really get in touch with who you really are at that stage in your life. And then, you know, I'm 37, my wife and I are, you know, 37 now. And then when we get, she just looked at me and said, why'd I tell her? But when we're 45 and 50 and 60, et cetera, you know, that version of our true self, when we do a physical challenge, is going to be different. And we want to discover who that is. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think there's something, whenever you do like what you've done, like, you know, you talked about the mission trip I was on where I had a similar, you know, as far as just being at the edge of yourself moment, there's nothing that you can do to simulate that other than to get out there, get in the water, get on the bike, run, hit the pavement, and push yourself to the brink. And I got to believe for you now, let me ask you, do you, having been through this experience and being able to just go, I've done that, does it make you look at other problems of life, physical or mental, differently than you did prior to this experience?
Yeah, I use that framework of an Ironman effort in being a family member, an Ironman effort in being a colleague, an Ironman effort in whatever. And I think that is one of the true things I've taken away from this. Or even when you are, you know, you're working on a particular project and either there's a deadline or, you know, it's gone on too long and you feel like you're losing steam, you know, you do tap into that mentality and that hardness that you have built, and to be able to draw into those reserves to go further. And, you know, that David Goggins has that whole thing that Jesse Itzler kind of shared with the world in terms of, like, when you think you're done, you're only 40% done.
Right.
And that's right. And I think and I've learned that is right. And so, for me, the next step in the journey is to control things around nutrition with its alcohol or desserts. Like that is truly one of my most difficult things. And I got away with having the same crappy diet because of the volume. But now it's like, that's not optimized. That's not how I want to live. And so part of this next chapter, in addition to doing a full Ironman in Nice in June and getting a better time, an equal part of that journey and an even more difficult part of that journey is a lifelong struggle with dietary control. Now, I've never really been, there's only one time in college I was like 185 pounds, and I'm 5 foot nothing. And so 185 pounds on that is a lot. And my buddy's like, hey dude, you're fat, you should lose weight. I was like, all right, cool, let's go work out 5 times a week. So I did. But it was just this, it's almost like right now that has to be done. Although I'm not feeling the effects at my current state, now it's like when I'm 45 or 55 or 60, et cetera, like what are the positive effects of having a good nutritious diet?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you because, my wife is your age and I'm about 10 years older than you. I'm 46. And, I gave up all alcohol 3 years ago. Won't drink a drop. And it took a while for me before I would say I do not drink. And, because I didn't want to make it some kind of rule, kind of like a willpower. And it wasn't that. There was something about it. And then, so that was like the first, and it took me for years because we were a big drinking family. That was kind of like the center of our social existence at my parents' house, is that, getting out and we'd have beers and just, big time around the fire. And so it was a real tough call, but that was the first really big milestone for me. And then it became truly studying nutrition and this whole longevity process, reading David Sinclair's work, reading and listening to what Peter Attia was putting out. And then now a guest that's been on the podcast, I'll be launching his episode, Joel Green, who wrote the Immunity Code, and Marvin Singh, and all these minds that have brought so much stuff to the fore about health, nutrition, and longevity. And then what happened for me was it became almost an obsession with me, not the exercise, not the eating right and all that, but just the mental clarity, feeling well, being able to be my age.
Did you ever reach a point where could you do moderation?
Oh yeah.
In terms of like, you do like, hey, I only have 2 glasses of wines on a Friday.
I could do it, but here's what's happened. It's like, I don't want it bad enough to like the obsession with clarity. And, and of course, I guess it's not metformin, it's resveratrol, I guess, that red wine has in it. Well, you'd have to drink so much red wine. I used to use that as an excuse and say, well, if I have a couple of glasses of cab, then I get I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, I always do, resveratrol in it, but you'd have to drink so much wine to really get the benefits. And now it's more of a mental thing for me. There's no craving. So if there were a craving, it'd be different, but it's truly become this deal where there is no craving now, because food is different. Food is more of a moderation deal. That, I will say this though, of late, now that I've started focusing so much on my gut health, and I actually talked to Joel Green about this whenever we did his interview, I was like, man, I look at foods now and I just don't want to take the risk of something being thrown off balance, so I don't crave things that I once did. And he said, yeah, that's perfectly normal, because what happens is whenever you're feeding your gut biome what it wants, then it will kind of we've got more neuroreceptors in our gut than we do the brain. So it's going to tell you what it wants, and it's going to want good things. It's going to want things that feel good, as opposed to what the tongue and the senses want, which are things that smell and taste good. So what I always tell people when they're struggling with nutrition in particular, I say, if the first step is just learning your body. And for me, so it becomes more of a psychological. Willpower doesn't work. I just don't believe in willpower. Will only get you so. David Goggins does not do what David Goggins does based on pure willpower.
Yeah.
It's there's more to it than that. And so for me, I tell people, you have to start learning what's going on inside your body. And so then when you eat a thing, that tastes really good, but then you also have the counterbalance of what's going to happen to your blood sugar levels, where that metabolized garbage, the toxins, where they're going to go and how they're going to arrange themselves in your body, and what the long-term effects, if compounded over long enough years, can be. The mind is cool because it's built for survival. It will sit there and go, if you convince it that my longevity is related to not eating this thing, but instead eating this thing, then that's what the mind will go to.
Yeah. And you have to associate enough positive things with the new habit.
Precisely.
And there's a parallel, in the endurance journey. When you do your first 2 miles or 3 miles, and like my friend who texted me yesterday, he's like, my feet are barking. Like, do I have to really do this? Like, that's how I'm going to feel if I decide to, adjust drinking or adjust other stuff in the diet. It's going to suck in the beginning because you've done something for so long.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I can go cold turkey perfectly fine. Like, that's not a problem. The difficult thing is, okay, only Friday. And then Friday becomes, Saturday. And then Saturday becomes, hey, I'm in Kansas City for a client on Tuesday. Why not?
Yeah.
And then it just becomes, you know what? I just got home. It's 10 p.m. after a flight. I'm going to get, some chicken and some wine, go to bed. By the way, I'm supposed to wake up at 4:30 to go do a 1 hour swim. And guess what doesn't happen anymore?
Let me ask you this, because this is what came, like right now, I could, but I don't watch Mad Men anymore. And here's why, because going back to Atomic Habits, what James Clear said, the triggers. If I watch Mad Men, I'm going to be reminded of whenever I was in graduate school at night with a bag of Stacy's pita chips and a scotch on the rocks, or an old fashioned, sitting there going drink for drink with Don Draper. And it just, so it was a whole mood. It wasn't even so much, it was just like these things, and I've got a really dear friend of mine that I've coached over the last year, and he travels a lot and gets to play golf at the greatest golf courses on the planet. And he was a college golfer at West Point. And then they have these big meals. And so his struggle is, well, I'm on this trip, I'm away from home, and part of it is just, it's part of the experience. Big meal, great golf. And so we've had to talk through some of those things that really, it wasn't so much the meal or anything. It was just where he was, the timing, the ease of, well, the client's paying, or this is part of the business. It's part of establishing the relationship, is this big meal. And also, and what gets difficult too, and you probably deal with this a lot more than I do now, but in my past life, is when you sit down at a business dinner and everyone's ordering drinks and you're that guy. No thanks, none for me.
I actually didn't feel, I never felt that pressure.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I never felt that. It's more of like the whole client's paying thing. Like, oh, I'm on a trip in Portland. Guess what? Going to a steakhouse.
Right.
On a trip to Kansas City. Guess what? Steakhouse number 2, wine. It's been more like the social side, but it's also, if you were to take the objective third-party observer of this, you're like, all right, how much positive emotion are you going to have from 30 days of a glass of wine night versus 30 days of not, and also eating right? And then, by the way, the effect of that keystone habit, to the point in the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, he's talking about a cornerstone habit. Like, if you do that thing right, then everything else gets better or worse, depending on the habit. I think that would be part of this next chapter, is to experiment and keep it in journal. I journal pretty much every day, even if it's just one word or one sentence.
Same.
But keeping track of, like, hey, how do you feel at day 1? Okay, how do you feel at day 30? Well, not only do I mentally more clear, I'm sleeping better, got more energy with the family, but on top of that, like, I've hit all my workouts. Oh my God, because of that one cornerstone habit. Even if it was just like, if you're just focusing on alcohol, that led to better nutrition. Am I going to get that macaroni and pork at this Kansas City restaurant? Or am I going to, just maybe have some half rack of ribs and salad?
Right.
And just like the spillover effects in positive way of that cornerstone habit.
Well, and for me too, one of the things that's really been helpful is finding the victory in those moments, finding the victory in, I think Tony Robbins talked about this a long time ago, about how go to a restaurant and don't order the thing you want the most. And then in the moment, it sucks. It's almost like it's a mental version of running that last mile or finishing that training you don't want to do. But if you can get through that, then just the victory of that. And now I'm not saying it's worked every time for me, because it hasn't. But when it does, when I'm able to go, I've just now turned this meal into a competition to, or like what we have this place called Andy's Frozen Custard that my wife and I love. And now when I go and I don't order and she and I share a kid's just vanilla sundae with pecans, then I'm like, all right, there was a small victory. So that becomes the goal. And then I think also going back again to James Clear, for me in this deal, now I want to preface this too by saying, that, I've certainly, I think that I don't think there's anything bad with drinking, and I don't ever want to come across as I'm trying to put on a facade or anything like that. But for me personally, not encouraging anyone, but just right now, for me personally, I have assumed an identity that I want to inspire people to a healthier lifestyle, to try to, if your goal happened to be, I don't want to have another drink. I want to be a guy that you can look to. Somebody can go, hey, Jason, how'd you do that? And what did you do whenever you decided early on to go ahead and have another drink? I'd say the next day I'm not gonna have a drink. I mean, it just relax, that's kind of, so like what James Clear talks about so much is it's the identity, it's acting out the person you want to become. And I've done that long enough now to where it's still a daily, I have to be cognizant of it. And I certainly have never arrived, nor will I ever, but that journey there, it's pretty much what you see is what you get.
I think you're hitting on something that was very important through my journey of doing an Ironman was I would truly think to myself in a very sleepy state when the alarm goes off at 4:30 and then you snooze it to 4:35. And then I would just learn to train my brain to say, like, what would an Ironman do? He'd wake up, put on the shoes, go to the YMCA, get in the pool, knock out an hour, get on the bike, come home.
Yeah.
And you do that enough, and then you start to develop an identity of that. Yeah. And then your whole life starts to transform into that identity.
Yeah.
And so it's, to your point, to the point around drinking and nutrition, if that becomes your identity, that, part of my identity is that if I have a glass of wine at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. at dinner or something like that, I am less likely to do something productive from 9 to 10 at night.
Yeah.
Whether it's just, knock out laundry, which is the bane of my existence, or if it's, knocking out some emails that I was supposed to do from 8:30 to 9:30, or if I have 2 glasses of wine, or if it's 3, well, guess what? I'm a lot less likely to put on the shoes at 5 a.m.
Right.
And so that goes back into the identity of what is my actual identity? What is the person that I'm trying to become? And if it is an Ironman, then part of that might not include eating like crap.
Well, and that's one of the things that I want to do. The thing that I think I'm missing is doing kind of what you've done. Maybe not run an Ironman, but I want to do some sort of competition. Like I told Bobby Stroop, who is Patrick Mahomes' agility coach. He was here in Tyler. He's now moved to Kansas City to be near Patrick. But before Patrick, took off and it had to become one of only, I think, 5 clients that Bobby can train now. I wanted to hire Bobby to train me to go into a master's sprinting program. I mean, I want to compete on some level because I think that's the one thing I'm missing. I've got the nutrition, I've got the discipline, and it's weird too. Our backgrounds are so similar in that, but what you just said is I can attest to. I move in now, people sending me emails asking me for health advice. I'm an MBA. I'm not a nutritionist, but because I've become so obsessed with that, that's where I'm kind of going in my whatever self-improvement kind of coaching people. I started out coaching and consulting for strategy. I still do that, but where I have the most fun is helping people with good mental habits, nutritional habits and that sort of thing. But I'm missing that element of, do I run an Ironman? Do I run a marathon? Do I do a Spartan race? That's
I
my
would,
next thing, I think.
depending on, your particular, depending on your particular body, and if you are if you're physically able to do swimming and biking and running, I think one of the reasons to potentially do that is because so much of what I think your identity is now, when it comes into alcohol, nutrition, uh, mind, body, and spirit, is all about the long game, is all about endurance.
Right.
And so this would be a natural extension in the physical manifestation of an endurance identity. And so, and I mean, that's to the point we were discussing earlier about, the compound effect of small things done over time. I think that if your body is generally good enough to be able to do that distance, I think that you would really enjoy the complexity around an Ironman versus a marathon.
Yeah.
Now, to do a marathon at a good time is a very different event and is equally challenging. I think that your brain would enjoy an Ironman event because it's so different, the three disciplines, and not just individually, but bringing them all together and figuring that out. I think it would really, be something that you would enjoy and would be a natural extension of your identity, and something that you could achieve easily.
Yeah.
And I won't say that I will challenge you to do one. I would invite you to find one and figure it out.
Well, all right. My wife may hate you for it, but that's all right. That might be the next challenge, because I'm serious. I want to do something like that. And also I realize I'm still to the point where I can do that. I mean, I feel better now than I felt when I was, 35, and I can still, I still have vertical leap. I still do sprints. I can still do, I know that now. I will say this. I know I'm realistic. And I told Bobby Stroop this when we talked to him. Bobby, I know that there's going to come a day where I'm afraid almost to get out on a track and really go all out for 400 meters or 200 meters, because I'm going to leave body parts behind, because I realize my age, but I can still do things that I can still leapfrog over my daughter who's 5'8", and the same as I could whenever I've been doing that goofy. That's my parlor trick I've done since I was in college. I know one day I'm going to land and a disc is going to go flying out of my back or something, but right now I can still do that. So I don't want to wait till it's too long to where my body is just to the point where it just rejects all that. So,
well, if I think it also goes back into, if you wanted to do a true sprint running, what are you trying to accomplish with that?
Yeah.
Is it, in 3 months, I have my master's division for a sprint? And actually, another thing, if you're trying to, how much of a physical and mental and spiritual effort is accomplishing that versus the everything it takes to do a longer event?
Now, I think, the Ironman is definitely the more soul crushing, to be built back up, mental. And that's why I like the idea of the Ironman or a triathlon or whatever, as far as.
And I have no sprinting experience, so I can't speak to that event. It's equally challenging in a different way.
Yeah.
I gave up jujitsu when I did that for 8 years, usually 5 to 6 days a week, and usually 60 to 90 minutes a class. And I trained at 29 gyms worldwide. And jujitsu was my thing. I was at one of the top 3 academies in the world. Wow. And that was just it was my meditation. It legitimately pains me not to be able to go back, but that is not my goal right now. My goal is to support Jing and her next race, and to continue our family identities journey into endurance.
Well, I think it's awesome. Okay, so this is happening next June.
So her next race is going to be probably in Chattanooga, and I think that's in May. And then we'll do a June Ironman in Nice, France. She will doing the 70.3, and I'll be doing the full. And then we'll be doing that together in Nice, and we don't know how we're going to do this, but we'll figure it out just like we did in this first journey.
I've got some ideas on that. We'll talk about that offline. That may be a complete stupid idea, but I've got some. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And so it's like, so December, January.
What is your
February,
stupid idea? Is your stupid idea joining this? Or is your,
well, I just counted up. It's 6 months away. I've got two thoughts. Like, one, I think there's a cool organization that might help you guys get there. I think it's a great story. I think that we need to flesh that out, and kind of like where you were offering to help me before we got on one of my potential projects. I think that this would be one I would love to dive in and
we can definitely, like, we can afford this. It's a matter of like logistically, like even like where are we going to put the kids?
No, but there's more. I get that, but I think that it's I think that more people need to be invested in maybe it's taking care of the kids. We figure out logistically, but more people, I think, would love to just support what you guys do. It's a story, give them a reason to invest in, so that other families.
I like for this next thing, what I'd actually, now that, so we just started our second nonprofit, and then we have our legal representation, and we're create our 501c3. And like in 2020, our budget is to raise 100,000. Like at our first nonprofit, we get $2 million in donations. So now we're starting the second one, and it's a matter of getting donations. And so, for example, one of the things that we want to do is, let's say there is a transitioning Navy SEAL who wants to go from San Diego to New York to do 2 days of informational interviews. Well, that trip is probably going to cost $2,500 to $3,000. Okay, how do we get that person's highly vetted trip paid for? They shouldn't pay a thing on that.
Yeah.
So then maybe the goal is for 51 vets, the nonprofit, maybe our goal is we have 51 veterans who we support to do their informational interview trips or whatever.
Right.
And then I think, and this kind of goes to, I'm glad we're talking about this. I think for so many years, I've really run away from the reality of the family health history with my brother and my father having brain tumors. Like, that's part of the family history. And so I think, maybe part of this next journey is also, maybe I raise $50,000 or $100,000 for a particular charity that truly affects the lives of people who have been affected by brain tumors. Either they're in it now and they need support, or the families afterwards, or the individuals afterwards. I think that's, it's time for me to start getting more involved with that. And so, that's, I am so excited about this next chapter in 2022 to support other people, and the family and my wife, and her journey to do this, and other people's journey who's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. See, that's what I love. I love that. And it's doing hard things, like you said, and then doing hard things as a family to bring, because we have to, look, we live in the 21st century, man. It's a pretty cushy world out there. That's one of the reasons why so many people are so obese and overweight. We don't have to fight real hard for our food and for all these things. So creating these things, even if it is a simulated creation of a struggle that you can pull together as a family, brother, I think that is a phenomenal idea. I love what you guys are doing. So if I can support that effort, I just think that, man, I think you're onto something. And good Lord knows that families need to be tightened up today. Well, it doesn't matter what area you're in, but that's something I could certainly get behind. That's for sure, man. So I love
it. When Jing's laughing because she knows what's coming up here. When do you think that you could have a decision on what event you're going to do?
I have no idea.
It is currently November 16th.
Yeah.
What is a reasonable timeline for you to have a decision on what you're going to do?
Oh, if I were going to do something, I'd figure it out within probably a week or two. Why not? If I'm going to do something, I'll make my mind up.
We'll give it till Thanksgiving.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Thanks, man. Never inviting you on the podcast again.
Worst guess ever, first and last time.
Yeah, man. Wow. Yeah. So, okay. I like it.
You can just tell your wife, just blame it on me.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do. Well, man. Well, dude, this has been, as great of a conversation as I had hoped. I will say an ancillary benefit, man, is learning about what this has done for the family and how you guys jumped in together to do this. And now it's kind of become part of your legacy as a
Our
family.
family is now going to France to go do an Ironman triathlon.
Yeah.
If you said
so awesome
that this was going to happen a year ago, 3 years, 5 years, we're coming up
Yeah.
on our 10th anniversary. Like, if you saw it, like, what are you smoking? Like, this is like, I don't even like running.
Yeah.
And then eventually you do things enough, and then eventually you start to like it. And then your whole family's identity changes. And then you go off on we're realizing that our kids' education is like taking a whole different direction and broader scope. Like, it's not just, can you read and write and do 2 + 2? It's, hey, run a quarter mile.
Yeah.
If you want ice cream tonight.
I love it. Well, and it's like, or do you follow Ben Greenfield at all in his work? Okay, check out Ben Greenfield. This is how he's raising his boys. He's got twin sons, he and his wife, and they are very much, that's part of it. It's like a primal lifestyle where you teach your children survival skills. You teach them to the importance of bonding. Like, they after dinner every night, he plays his guitar and they sing songs in his living room. Just things like that. Doesn't cost any money, brings people together. So I think you would like to check out some of his content and what he's doing. And he's my gosh, that guy's he's done all the Ironman. That's what he was. He was a professional endurance athlete for years, and now he's just kind of a health and wellness expert. Has a great.
His name is
podcast.
Ben Greenfield.
Ben Greenfield.
Awesome. I will check that out.
So
cool.
But Jordan, this has been a blast, brother. Thank you, and congratulations on now being Ironman. So, dude, that's a rare feat, man. I'm very proud of you and for you, and I'm glad that that I had the courage to start this podcast, because it's what brought us together, and I love the friendship, and you're inspiring me, man. And I mean that.
Be honest, you're gonna quickly end this friendship in the next week when I just challenge you.
Yeah, I know.
Dang, we got one less friend. Sorry.
Man,
it's awesome to be on here. I love these discussions with you, and I hope that if anyone is listening to this and feels like they want to do something hard, please reach out to us. Look me up on Instagram or LinkedIn, Jordan Selleck, Selleck. Reach out to us, and it's okay if you have no idea what you want to do. Just register for something and we'll figure it out.
Awesome. Jordan, thank you, brother. I'm going to stop my recording devices, then I'll tell you goodbye appropriately. But before I do that, I'm going to do a little YouTube sign off here. Hey, folks, there you go. Ironman Jordan Selleck. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, thank you. Please hit subscribe and leave some comments. Get the algorithms lubed up and get more attention to this incredible story that Jordan has shared today. I would be most grateful. Also, don't forget to listen to the podcast, and please leave us an iTunes 5-star rating. And with that, just like Jordan and I talked about today, always endeavor to improve, always in all ways, to make the world around you just a little bit better. I'm Jason Wright. I'm out.